Good evening, church. We are in Proverbs Chapter 6. Now, first off, a proverb, and you may think this is a little odd to describe this at Chapter 6, but it's a statement. The word Proverbs is they call it a pithy statement, which is to say that the Proverbs are full of vigor, they're full of substance, and they're also full of meaning. Now, chapters 1 through 9 deal with a father's instruction for wisdom and how to get wisdom, what to do, what not to do, and how to go about getting wisdom. The actual pithy statements are the sayings with substance and meaning that we call proverbs. Those short statements, they do not begin until chapter 10. So those of you who have been expecting short things during our study this far may be wondering, I thought this was just chopped up book, but it's not. But it is a very important book. Now, chapter 6, we get into a little bit different aspect here, starting off in the first of the chapter. It says, My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth, and art taken with the words of thy mouth. Do this now, my son, deliver thyself. When thou art come into the hand of thy friend, go humble thyself, and make sure thy friend. Give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids. Deliver thyself as a roe, in other words, to run from it, from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. Now, what's he talking about here? We find first off, that surety here means to intermix with someone, as to barter with someone, and to self-mortgage. Basically, co-signing for someone. That's just not a good idea. Because if they give up and don't pay what they're supposed to pay, you're going to be held responsible for it. And basically, he says you will bring yourself into bondage by doing that. Because he says the word stricken there means, by analogy, to drive a nail or a tent stake. In other words, to become a bondsman. It's like driving a stake and tying yourself to it, you see, by being a surety for your friend or for your neighbor or whoever. There's a lot of us that have co-signed for our kids, and that sometimes can be a dangerous situation, financially. But nevertheless, he said, deliver yourself from that. Don't be doing that. Run from it, like the roe from the hunter, or a bird from the fowler. Run from it. So he's telling us here to get out of it as quickly as you can. If you've done that, get out of it as quickly as you can. Now, I trust my children as much as anybody, but it's still, we don't know the situations of what may happen in the future there, and we are to take care of them. Best way to look at it is, if you do give money or sign for money or whatever, just consider it gone. But let's move on. Okay, down to verse 6, it talks about the ant. Okay, but he's giving the ant as a thought here for someone who is lazy. I want you to take the example of the ant, lazy guy, That's what he's saying. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways, and be wise, which have no guide or overseer or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. In other words, the kingdom should be filled up with people that have responsibility in their life. Okay? Nobody's breathing down the ant's back. They do what they do, and they work regardless of what it is. Now, it's kind of a thing here that if they don't don't work, they don't eat. Look over in 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, I believe it is, and verse 10. For even when this is Paul talking to Timothy, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. Wow. In other words, do something. You might not be the strongest in the pack, or can run as fast, or lift as much, or do whatever, but do something here. You got to work. To eat, you got to work. Look at verse 9. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Wake up. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. Look what will happen. So shall thy poverty come. Don't mean you're in poverty yet by being lazy. Somebody else is maybe taking care of you, like we know the state is doing a lot now in the government. So shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth, and thy want as an armed man. In other words, you become entrapped by those who are taking care of you and feeding you, the government, so to speak, and you may get to the point where you want to go out and rob somebody because you are not getting what you need because the ones who said they were going to take care of you didn't do it like they said they were going to. So it's a serious thing. Okay, let's move on. 12. A naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. Man, lazy people will do that too. I've noticed, and I thought about this because I like to watch the birds in my yard, and I've got feeders out there. And you feed those birds, they get reliant on you. And they will come out there and expect something that is there. Now, I like to watch them. And they will come out and expect it to be there. If it's not, they'll sit around on your porch or wherever. They will make a mess everywhere because they expect something. Okay? And so they get things all messed up if they're not taken care of. Well, same way with a sluggard and with a naughty person. And this naughty here means without profit, somebody that's not carrying their load. Okay? They're worthless. That's the definition there of naughty. Walketh with a froward mouth. Wow. His mouth distorts things. Now this brings into the picture here a naughty person. What is this naughty? Somebody that's not building up people, not carrying their load, not being a positive influence. There's a lot of negative. You can't hardly watch TV, man. I'm about got to where I don't. And but having a froward mouth means a perverse mouth, speaking perversities. I've never seen the like in my life. How they take bywords and put it into everything. But let me talk about cursing, or we would say down in where I came from, just plain old cussing. Let's look what the word Word says about that. Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupt communication or rotten, worthless communication, something said, proceed or depart, come out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, something that builds. That's what we're supposed to do, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Okay, we are to be a positive influence, but a froward, perverse mouth speaking rotten things tears down rather than builds up. Okay, Proverbs 4:23 and 24, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life, your heart. Put away from thee a froward or perverse mouth, and perverse or perverseness of your lips put far from thee. Why is that? In Luke 6:45, I want to read this to you. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good, and an evil man out of the treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. Get this part. For of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. So when you see people using terms they should not use, Christians have got a lot of bywords they use that are not the actual thing, but you know what they're actually saying. That's not good either. You know what's in the heart of man by what he is speaking, what his heart's like. Look at James 3:9 through 10. Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse or doom we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. Wow, a thing held in abomination. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. In other words, keep your speech clean. But I say unto you that every idle, this is Matthew 12:36 and 37, that every idle word, every inactive or useless word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. For by the words for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words shalt thou be condemned. In other words, pronounced guilty. Wow, judgment is coming, and it has to do with our mouth. Man, we can speak words according to James, and this is like setting a fire. Okay, Deuteronomy 5:11. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. That means in desolation, mixed with evil, moral ruin. How many times do we hear God's name taken in vain in speech? Wow, that even goes for oaths that have been given into societies and stuff. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Wow, there again, it's evil or moral ruin coming out of your mouth. Okay, in 1 Peter 3:10 and 11. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain, or stop it, or quit it, his tongue from evil, speaking worthless and injurious things. Man, aren't we doing that today? Our governments are doing that. It's just sad. And his lips, that they speak no guile. And in other words, set out a decoy or trickery for somebody. Let him eschew or shun evil, worthless, injurious speech, and do good. Let him seek peace and ensue it. This ensue means to pursue it. Okay? Now, one more before I move on. In Ecclesiastes 5:2 and 3, be not rash, or alarmed, or agitated, thrust out with thy mouth. You see, we get agitated pretty quick and things come out that should not. And let thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou art upon earth. Therefore let thy words be few. Man, if you get agitated right quick, you may say, well, doggone. or ow. I've got an uncle who used to say, well, foot, like F-O-O-T. For a dream cometh through the multitude of busyness. That's generally employment, but it also means travail. And a fool's voice is known by multitude of words. Wow. So let's watch our speech, and let's not be rash in doing that. Let's make sure that we control our tongue. What people have spent years building up can be tore down in a minute by using the tongue. Okay? He winketh, in verse 13, he winketh with his eyes. He speaketh with his feet. In other words, where he goes and what he does, and teaches with his fingers. And, he'll wink, like he'll say something in trickery or whatever and wink his eye. In other words, he's letting you know he's doing that, maybe to someone else. Frowardness or perverseness is in his heart. He deviseth mischief continually. He sows discord. That's one of the things that God hates, as we will see here in just a few minutes. One of the 7 abominations that the Lord hates. Therefore his calamity comes suddenly. Wow. Suddenly shall he be broken without remedy. Okay? Then he goes on in verse 16. These 6 things doth the Lord hate. I mean, he despises them. He hates all sin, but he's about to give us a list of things that are abomination to him. They're disgusting to him. They're an abhorrence to him. They cause nausea, makes him sick at his stomach, loathing. He has a strong dislike against. And one is a proud look. You see, pride is what got Satan in trouble eons ago in the heavens. He said, I want to be like the Most High. I want to be this. I want to be that. And he was lifted up in pride. Pride is a gateway to these other sins. And it's kind of interesting that these have to do with the way you treat others. Wow. A proud look, a lying tongue, telling lies. Now here's what Revelation 21:8 says about somebody that lies. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable, that's what we're reading about here, and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers, that's drugs if you look that up, and idolaters and all liars, A-double-L, shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So lying is pretty serious. Hands that shed innocent blood. Wow. Hands that shed innocent blood. According to the World Health Organization, 1.2 million babies, get this, have been aborted in the first 10 days of 2021. 1.2 million. It's estimated that some 40 to 50, some say 60 million babies are aborted each year. Wow. Someone made this statement I read a while back, and it says, I'll have plenty of explaining to do on Judgment Day, but voting for a platform that kills babies won't be one of them. Wow. You see, I was blasted out not long ago for mentioning abortion as one of the election points this year. And it was said of me, they said, one of them, the other one agreed, I hate one-issue voters. But isn't that issue big enough? Of course it is. Millions of babies being killed. One of the things that God despises is someone who sheds innocent blood. Wow. You see, their statement really made me sad. It hurt, really. And it should be, that issue should be enough, folks, to cause you to turn around and look. I don't think a Christian can vote for a platform that supports killing babies. You're supporting an abomination against God. Let me tell you, judgment is coming. We better watch. Make sure our hearts are clean of this. Now, if you have done that, you need to get forgiveness from God. If you've had an abortion, He wants you to come to Him for forgiveness. God has got that child that you should be raising, making up His rose garden, so to speak. You need to make things right with God and let Him cleanse your heart. You'll never forget it, but you can be cleansed of it. Okay, let's go on. And heart that devises wicked imaginations. Man's sitting around thinking of bad things all the time. Things that you can devise to trip somebody up. Folks, we got enough to do without studying on that. Feet that be swift in running to mischief. You see, a good juicy tale or a good juicy joke is something everybody wants to run to and can't wait to tell it. But don't be running to do that, or running to tear down somebody, or, feet running to do mischief. Wow. A false witness that speaketh lies. Now, with all the politics of the world leading the way today, somebody's not telling the truth. Somebody's going to get in trouble. And he that soweth discord among the brethren. That is one of the things that happens to churches all over the world, is that somebody comes in to sow discord among the brethren, and it will split your church wide open. Thank God we have a good church that God has blessed and watching over us, but it takes us watching over as well. That each of us watch about sowing discord about, among the brethren. Talking about this one, talking about that one in a negative way. Always build somebody up. I've always heard it said, if you can't say something good, just keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. Okay, and the next verse is another section here. He says, my son, now he's referring to the things that he has just said, and the beginning of this chapter, as well as the things that are ending this chapter. And he says, my son, keep thy father's commandment, and forsake not the law of thy mother. Bind them continually upon thine heart, and tie them about thy neck. In other words, write them in your heart, tie it around your neck. You're always aware of it. And when thou goest, it shall lead thee. If you pay attention to what? The wisdom of the Father. When thou sleepest, it shall keep thee. Don't have to worry about sleep. And when thou awakest, it shall talk to thee. In other words, wise things will be there for you to start your day. And one of them is with thanking God that you woke up, thanking Him for a new day, and asking what He needs you to be doing. For the commandment is, now note this, the commandment, having wisdom, knowing what to do with what you know, For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Man, we've got to reprove ourselves first off. But does that ring a bell? In Psalms 119, 105, he says, Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And you can't have the word without having knowledge of the word or wisdom how to use the word. And so that's what he's saying here. And then he goes on now. Remember, we've talked about wisdom as being seen in the feminine gender. So is the opposite of that seen in the feminine gender. It has nothing to do with a good woman or bad woman. It's just talking about making good decisions or bad decisions. And one is wise and one is unwise. And he says, if you will keep these commandments and all these things right here, he says, to keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. You see, Solomon, this is one of the themes, not only as financial themes of Proverbs, especially in the instruction chapters here, but also that of keeping your house pure. He goes on. He says, now what I meant to say there was he has referred to the strange woman or being unwise or adultery and things like this. He said, he goes right back to the subject. In other words, must have been very important to him. Okay, he knows well about the subject and brings it up repeatedly, warning to his son. He says, to keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of her tongue and so forth. Now, what he says here is when temptation comes, you've got to be prepared. Okay? What to do when temptation comes. This could be a lot of things here. But what to do? He said, lust not after her beauty in thine heart. Don't set your heart on her. It's kind of like David that we referred to. I preached a message one time, David's heart attack. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. In other words, making suggestive gestures with her eyes. Okay? Now the devil's going to see that temptation comes. What's this? For by means of a whorish woman a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. Can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Can one go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned? In other words, there are consequences to that, if you will. Now hang on, I know a lot of us all have not been perfect little Christians. 6:29. So, in other words, he says, so or likewise, he that goeth into his neighbor's wife, whosoever toucheth her shall not be innocent. And this innocent means he's not going to be clean. He's not going to be free of consequences. There are going to be consequences. And I said this, I believe it was in last week's things, that adultery is a terrible act that causes pain to self, it causes pain to others, confusion, destroys witness, and a myriad of other things. And we, once again, we saw this in David's situation with his sons. Now, Proverbs 6:30, and y'all hang on to the end. Men do not despise a thief. Well, in other words, we've covered this in earlier chapters. But look at 6:32. But whosoever committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding, and he that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. Now, understanding here, we saw earlier that it meant chastisement. But the Greek or the Hebrew word used here does not mean chastisement. It means the heart. In other words, someone that will do that is having a lack of heart. He's got a hard heart or a backslidden heart against the whole situation, and even a misguided heart. So we've got to take care of our heart, he says. And he that doeth that destroyeth his own soul. And that word means to destroy or bring to ruin. Now, I heard this saying a long time ago, and it's not that we all are perfect, but this saying goes where we can understand it pretty clearly. It said something like this, if I can remember it. A smart monkey is a monkey that doesn't monkey with another monkey's monkey. That's basically what that's saying here. He says in verse 33, a wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. In other words, basically, this dishonor here means there's going to be a blow of something. In other words, kind of like getting shot with a gun, or how you get a blow to the chest or whatever. This right here means a blow of disgrace will show up. This reproach and this disgrace shall not be wiped away, he says, or rubbed out. In other words, there are consequences to that. It's something one has to live the rest of his days with. Whether the situation is understood by others or whether it is not understood, it's going to be there hanging over for the rest of your life. That's just the way it is. Now, Proverbs 6:34 and 35 deal with jealousy and revenge and stuff like that. But that brings us in our study now back to 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 11. Remember this. It does not mean that if you have done something, you're automatically destroyed for life. Here's what he says. And such were, past tense, and such were some of you. But ye are washed, made clean. But you are sanctified. Ooh, got a purpose. And you are justified, made just, in the name of the Lord Jesus and by the Spirit of our God. Aren't you glad for the grace of God? Now, I want to look at another scripture that deals with the same thing that 1 Corinthians chapter 6 deals with, the litany of sins. And Galatians 5:19 through 21, it just gives a mirror, so to speak, of 1 Corinthians 6:11. And it says that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Boy, if we take that right off the cuff, we say, man, you do such things as that, or if you have done that, you are doomed eternally. But that's not what it says. What this does not say is, they which have done such things. Did you catch that? It says up here in the verse that they which do such things. It does not say they which have done such things. The word for do here is from the Greek, okay? It's prazo. And it means this, to practice. That is, to perform repeatedly or by habit. I talked to you last week about this, how that it is a lifestyle thing. If you keep sinning and sinning and sinning and you're not going to change, you keep doing the same old things over and over, you're in big trouble. We have to have repentance. I've got to have help to make it to heaven. You've got to have help to make it to heaven. And thankful I am for the grace of God that loved us, and His love. My goodness. I read a thing the other day that says, if you think that you have sinned too greatly for God to forgive you, you're not that powerful, because God is all powerful and He can forgive all sin that cleanses us from unrighteousness. This chapter is a good chapter. Chapter 7 goes right on in, almost to the same theme, but we will click through the things we've already discussed and move on. But everybody stay safe. If you're out traveling and whatnot in this snow, be careful. Hopefully it'll be cleared up where we can be back in the house of God Sunday. We'll have to wait till later in the week to see what things are doing. God bless you. I love you.